Welcome, dear friends. Welcome to sixth chapter of our story. Tonight, we continue with other page of a story that will stretch across many nights. A story of Chichen Itza, where stone temples whisper secrets and life moves in rhythms long forgotten. Tell me in the comments where you're listening from and what hour of the night keeps you company. It's always magical to know that these words travel across oceans and time zones. If you like the stories, please let us know in the comments which story you would like to hear next. If you are ready, soften the lights, let the world around you fade away, and allow yourself to wander into history's gentle embrace. Step once more into the plaza of Chichen Itza, and let your eyes follow the path northward. There, beyond the towering Temple of the Warriors and its forest of columns, a massive structure stretches before you, stone walls rising high, enclosing a space larger than two modern football fields. This is no ordinary arena. This is the Great Ball Court, the largest of its kind in the Maya world. Imagine standing at its center. The ground beneath you is flat, hard, ancient. On either side, stone walls soar upward, their surfaces carved with images. Warriors' skulls, serpents, celestial beings. High above, carved into the stone, are giant rings, stone hoops, set impossibly high, as if placed there by gods rather than men. The place is immense, yet the silence is eerie. And if you clap your hands, a strange thing happens. The sound does not vanish. It bounces back, tenfold, echoing like the call of 1,000 voices. A clap at one end can be heard perfectly clear at the other. A whisper can travel across the space. A shout can sound like thunder. Even now, it feels enchanted. But for the ancient Maya, it was more than enchantment. It was cosmic design. The court was not only a field of play. It was the universe itself, the stage upon which the eternal struggle of life and death was reenacted. The game itself was unlike anything familiar today. Players wore padded armor on their hips and shoulders. The ball, made of solid rubber, heavy, dense, was hurled into motion. Yet the players could not use their hands. No, they struck it with their hips, their elbows, their knees. Each movement was precise, each contact a dance of force and control. The goal? To send the ball through the stone ring high above. A feat so difficult, so rare, that when it happened, it was said to be a moment of divine intervention. But winning was not always the prize you might expect. For in this sacred game, victory and defeat blurred. To play was to enter the realm of myth. To strike the ball was to echo the movements of the gods themselves. The Maya spoke of the hero twins, divine brothers whose tale is carved into myth. The story tells of how they descended into the underworld to face the lords of death, and there they played a ball game for their very lives. With wit, with courage, with skill, they triumphed, not only over their opponents, but over death itself. Every game played at Chichen Itza echoed that story. Each strike of the ball was a reenactment of cosmic struggle. Light versus dark, life versus death, order versus chaos. The court was not only an arena of sport. It was a theater of the universe. Picture the scene on a festival day. Thousands gather around the ball court. Men, women, children, all eyes fixed on the players below. Musicians beat drums. Shell trumpets call out across the air. The smell of incense drifts. The players step into the court, their bodies painted, their eyes sharp, their movements steady. The crowd falls quiet. The ball is brought forth, heavy black, shining in the sun. A priest blesses it, marking it with sacred symbols. And then, with a signal, the game begins. The ball slams into the ground with a thud. Players leap, twist, strike with their hips, their arms, their shoulders. The sound reverberates, echoing off the walls like rolling thunder. Each strike is met with a cheer, a gasp, a cry from the crowd. The game is not quick. It is grueling. Sweat glistens on the players. Dust rises from the court. Hours pass. Still, they move, relentless, chasing the ball, striking it, returning it, their bodies colliding, their breaths heavy. And then, the moment comes. The ball arcs high. A player leaps. With a twist of his hip, he sends it flying through the stone ring. For an instant, time stops. Silence falls. Then the crowd erupts, cheers, drums, shouts, the sound shaking the very stones. The game is won. But the true climax has yet to come. For here, at Chichen Itza, the ball game was not only sport. It was sacrifice. Some say the victors were honored with death, chosen to offer their lives to the gods. Others say it was the defeated who met that fate. The truth may be lost in time, blurred by myth and memory. But what is certain is this. Blood was shed upon this court, not in cruelty, but in ritual, in reciprocity. To feed the gods, to keep the cycle of life and death in balance, to honor the story of the hero twins. Stone carvings tell the tale. Along the walls, you can see them still, warriors holding severed heads, blood flowing, serpents emerging from the wounds. Graphic, vivid, unflinching. The Maya did not shy from death. They embraced it as part of the eternal cycle. And so, the ball game was more than play. It was prayer. It was offering. It was destiny. Now imagine standing once more in the silent court, centuries later. The crowds are gone. The drums no longer beat. The players no longer run. Yet the space still hums. Clap your hands, and the echo returns, sharp and alive, as if the court itself remembers every shout, every drum, every cry. Close your eyes, and you may hear them still. The thud of the ball, the chant of the crowd, the breath of the players, strained and steady. The echo of sacrifice, the whisper of the serpent. The great ball court remains, and with it, the echoes of all who played, all who lived, all who gave their lives upon its stone floor. In this place, the story of Chichen Itza becomes more than history. It becomes alive, eternal, forever bouncing between the stone walls, like a ball struck long ago, never quite coming to rest. If you close your eyes now, you can imagine yourself standing at the very edge of the great ball court of Chichen Itza. The heat presses down, the stones radiate warmth, and cicadas buzz from the trees beyond the walls. But here, inside this immense stone arena, the air feels heavier, almost sacred. It is vast, 168 meters long, 70 meters wide. No other ball court in Mesoamerica comes close. The walls rise to nearly 8 meters high, their surfaces not smooth, but covered in images carved by hands 1,000 years gone. These are not decorations. They are messages, stories frozen in stone. Walk closer, and you see them. Warriors clad in elaborate headdresses, jaguar skins, and armor made of jade beads. In one panel, 2 teams face each other. In another, a player kneels, his head severed. Yet from the neck, instead of blood, 7 writhing serpents emerge, twisting upward, alive with divine energy. The message is clear. Death here is not an end, but a transformation, a renewal. The carvings do not whisper, they shout. They remind every player, every spectator, that the ball game was never just a sport. It was theater, sacrifice, and cosmic reenactment. The acoustics of the gods. But beyond the images, there is the sound. Clap your hands once, sharply. The echo comes back like a bird's cry multiplied 7 times. It is not an accident. The walls, the length, the height, they were designed with purpose. Stand at one end, speak in a normal voice, and those at the opposite end can hear every word as if you stood beside them. Priests could whisper prayers that reached the ears of 1,000. Drums beat once could sound like thunder rolling across the heavens. Modern acoustical engineers have studied this place, astonished. The echoes replicate the sound of the Quetzal bird, sacred to the Maya. Each clap, each strike, each drumbeat evoked the very call of the divine bird, linking human ritual with the voice of the gods. So when the ball slammed against stone, when players hurled themselves across the court, the sounds themselves carried meaning. The game was music. It was liturgy written in motion and echo. The ball players. Now, picture the ball players themselves. These were not casual athletes. They trained from youth. Their bodies were hardened, their movements practiced endlessly. To strike a ball weighing nearly 4 kilograms with only the hip, the thigh, the shoulder, and to do it with speed and precision, required not only skill but discipline. Before the game, they prepared in ritual, their bodies painted with black and red, symbols of night and blood. They tied protective belts of leather or wood around their waists, sometimes padded with cloth. Their headdresses were adorned with feathers of quetzal and macaw, glistening green and crimson in the sun. But above all, they carried with them the weight of symbolism. They were not merely athletes. They were stand-ins for gods, warriors acting out the eternal conflict of the cosmos. Each strike of the ball was the sun rising, the stars falling, the struggle of life against death. One can almost hear their breathing, their whispered prayers to Kukulkan, to Chak, to the ancestors as they prepared to enter the court. The rituals of blood. The ball game was never separate from sacrifice. To the Maya, blood was the food of the gods, the essence that kept the cosmos in balance. And so, whether it was the losing team or sometimes the victorious captain, blood was offered when the game was done. Accounts differ. Some say the winners were sacrificed. For what greater honor could there be than to ascend to the gods at the height of glory? Others argue it was the defeated, humiliated, and given as repayment to restore balance. Perhaps it was both, depending on the ritual, the era, the priest's decree. The carved panels of the ball court seem to show a victorious player holding the severed head of another. Yet the image is not grim. It is radiant. From the head, serpents rise, life from death, energy from sacrifice. The message is not of cruelty, but of transformation. And so, to stand in the ball court was to stand at the threshold of worlds, one step in the living realm, one step in the underworld, each strike of the ball a crossing between the two. The myth of the hero twins. But to truly understand this game, we must step deeper into the stories the Maya told, the mythology carved into their very bones. There is a tale preserved in the Popol Vuh, the sacred book of the Kitch Maya. It tells of the hero twins, Hunahpu and Zbalanque. Long ago, their father and uncle were great ball players, but their noise, the sound of their play, disturbed the lords of Xibalba, the underworld. Summoned below, the men were tricked, defeated, and sacrificed, their bodies buried, their heads placed upon trees. Years later, their sons, Hunahpu and Zbalanque, grew strong. They too played the ball game, and they too disturbed the lords of Xibalba. But unlike their fathers, they were cunning. They accepted the challenge, journeyed into the underworld, and faced the trials of its dark lords. They were forced into deadly houses, the House of Knives, the House of Darkness, the House of Fire. Each time, they survived with wit and courage. Finally, they entered the ball court of Xibalba itself. There, they played against the Lords of Death. The ball was heavy, the stakes higher than life itself. At first, they seemed defeated, but through trickery, through brilliance, they turned the game. In the end, they triumphed, not only winning the match, but bringing new order to the cosmos. The hero twins became symbols of rebirth, of victory over death, of the eternal cycle of sun and moon. And so, when Amaya played the ball game at Chichen Itza, they did not see men striking rubber. They saw gods reenacting this myth. Each game was the hero twins reborn. Each sacrifice was a return to the story that gave order to the universe. The crowd. Imagine the crowd now. Thousands pressing against the stone, filling the stands above, leaning forward in breathless silence. Children on their father's shoulders. Women carrying baskets of food, incense wafting. Merchants with painted faces, priests with obsidian knives at their belts. The game unfolds below, the ball echoing against the walls, the players grunting, twisting, diving. The crowd gasps, cries out, then falls silent again. Hours pass. The sun shifts. Shadows stretch across the court, and still the players move. When at last the ball soars and passes through the ring, the sound that erupts is not only cheers. It is drums, trumpets, cries, prayers. And as the captain kneels, whether victor or vanquished, the people do not weep. They bow their heads. They know the blood spilled here will keep the stars moving, the rains falling, the corn growing. The sacrifice is not an end, but a gift. The silence today, And now, after centuries, the court stands empty. The rings remain high upon the walls. The carvings remain, though weathered by time. The echoes remain. Clap once, and the sound returns, as though the gods themselves answer back. But the players are gone. The crowds have vanished. The priests no longer walk here. Only the wind, the birds, the rustle of leaves. Yet the silence is never total. For if you stand still, close your eyes, and listen, you may hear it still. The thud of the ball, the cry of the crowd, the whisper of the serpents. The eternal game, still playing somewhere between the stones and the sky. We have seen the court. We have heard the echoes. We have imagined the players, the crowds, the rituals. But to the Maya, none of this was complete without the myth that gave it meaning. The story of the hero twins, Hunahpu and Zbalanque. This story, preserved in the Popol Vuh, is not simply entertainment. It is a cosmic memory, a guiding thread, a myth performed each time the ball struck stone. So let us descend into the underworld with them, slowly, step by step. The first ball game, a father's defeat. Long ago, before the twins were born, their father, Hunahpu, and his brother, Vucub Hunahpu, were famed as the greatest ball players of the age. They played with passion, their rubber ball echoing across the hills and valleys, their laughter carrying into the skies. But their noise, their joy, rose into realms not meant to hear it. Deep in the darkness of Xibalba, the lords of death stirred. They heard the thudding of the ball above them and grew angry. "Who disturbs us with this game?" they demanded. So they summoned Hunahpu and Vucub Hunahpu to the underworld. The brothers accepted, thinking themselves strong. But Xibalba was not a place of fairness. It was a place of riddles and traps. First, they were forced to cross rivers, one of scorpions, one of blood, one of pus. Then they were seated upon a bench, which burned beneath them like fire. They cried out in pain, and the lords laughed. Next, they were sent to spend the night in the House of Darkness. There, given only a torch and 2 cigars, they were told to keep them lit until dawn. But the trick was cruel. The lords expected them to fail. When the cigars burned out, the brothers tried to trick the lords with substitutes, but they were caught. At last, defeated and humiliated, the brothers were sacrificed. Hunahpu's head was severed and hung in a calabash tree. The tree bore fruit, but all the fruit looked like human skulls. And when people came to see it, they could not tell the fruit from the head of Hunahpu. It was from this strange tree that destiny would continue. For when the daughter of one of the lords of Xibalba came near, the skull spat into her hand, and from that seed, the hero twins would one day be born. The birth of the twins. Hunahpu and Zbalanque were not ordinary children. From their earliest days, they were clever, inventive, and destined for greatness. They made music, they hunted with blowguns, and soon, like their father before them, they began to play the ball game. The thud of their rubber ball once again shook the earth above Xibalba. And once again, the lords of death grew furious. "Who dares disturb us again?" they cried. When they learned it was the sons of Hunahpu, they smiled cruelly. "Send for them. Let them come to us. This time, we will finish what we began." The journey into Xibalba. The twins did not hesitate. They accepted the challenge, knowing it would be perilous. To reach Xibalba, they had to travel to a great canyon, descend into the shadows, cross the same rivers of blood and pus, and finally arrive at the council place of the lords. But unlike their father and uncle, the twins were cautious. They sent ahead a mosquito to spy, to learn the names of the lords of death, to see through their deceptions. When they arrived, they greeted each lord by name, confounding them, showing they were not so easily tricked. Yet the lords persisted. "Sit here," they said, offering them the same burning bench. But the twins did not fall for it. They remained standing. Then came the trials, the deadly houses of Xibalba. The houses of Xibalba. First was the House of Darkness. The twins were given a torch and cigars, just as their father had been. But this time they were clever. They attached fireflies to the torch to keep it glowing and replaced the cigars with red feathers to mimic a flame. When morning came, the lords were furious, but the boys had passed the test. Next came the House of Knives, filled with blades that leapt and slashed of their own accord. The twins spoke to the knives, promised them offerings, and commanded them to be still. The knives obeyed. Then came the house of jaguars, where the beasts prowled, hungry and snarling. The twins threw them bones to gnaw, keeping them satisfied until dawn. In the house of fire, the flames licked and roared, but the twins endured, unharmed. In the house of bats, they hid inside their blowguns for safety. But Hunahpu, peeking out to see if dawn had come, was decapitated by Kamisats, the bat god. His head was placed upon the ball court as the ball itself. Zbalank wept, but he did not give up. He crafted a replacement head from a squash and placed it upon his brother's shoulders. The game would continue. The final game. The next day, the twins faced the lords of Zabalba in the ball court. The lords laughed, using Hunahpu's real head as the ball. But Zbalank devised a trick. He lured animals to fetch the head back, returning it to his brother, replacing the false one. Now whole again, Hunahpu rejoined the game. The match raged on. The ball struck walls, echoed across the underworld, and the lords grew uneasy. These were no ordinary boys. Finally, the twins allowed themselves to be defeated, but only in appearance. They consented to be sacrificed, and their bodies were ground into dust and cast into the river. But this was their plan all along. For in the waters, they were reborn, transformed into fish, and then into radiant young men once again. When they returned, disguised, they performed miracles, dancing, resurrecting animals, even bringing each other back to life. The lords of Zabalba, impressed and arrogant, demanded to see these tricks. "Sacrifice us and bring us back," the lords commanded. The twins obliged, killing them, but this time they did not revive them. The lords of death were destroyed, the legacy of the twins. Thus the hero twins triumphed, avenging their father and uncle, defeating the lords of death, and bringing balance to the cosmos. Some versions say Hunahpu became the sun, Zbalank the moon, eternal light. And so, every ball game in every city, and especially here at Chichen Itza, was not just a contest of skill. It was the reenactment of this sacred myth. Each strike of the ball echoed the twins' journey. Each sacrifice mirrored their victory over death. The court itself was a stage upon which the story of creation and rebirth was played again and again, returning to the court. And so, as we stand now in the great ball court, we understand more. The carvings of decapitated players are not grim, but glorious. The echoes are not accidents, but voices of gods. The sacrifice at the game's end was not cruelty, but the continuation of a cycle that bound earth, sky, and underworld together. The Maya who sat here 1,000 years ago knew the story. They whispered it to their children. They felt it in the thud of the ball, in the cry of the Quetzal, echoing through stone. And if you listen carefully, you may still hear the twins. Hunahpu and Zbalank running, leaping, laughing, defying death. Forever in the eternal ball game. The myth has ended, but the echoes have not. For myths do not simply vanish into the past. They remain alive, embedded in stone, in ritual, in memory. Let us walk once more into the great ball court of Chichen Itza. Imagine the courtyard, 168 meters long, 70 meters wide. Walls towering nearly 8 meters high, sheer and imposing, with stone rings carved high on the sides. It is vast, far larger than most ball courts across Mesoamerica. The scale itself whispers, this was not just a game. This was theater for the cosmos. Stand still for a moment. Clap your hands. A sharp crack travels across the open air, and then returns not once but 7 times. 7 echoes, bouncing in quick succession, as if invisible voices answer. Archaeologists have measured this. The court was built to carry sound, to amplify it. Now imagine this sound not as a clap, but as the thud of a heavy rubber ball, striking the stone, echoing again and again. Every impact must have rolled like thunder across the court. The Maya did not build blindly. They understood the language of stone, and they shaped it to speak. The carvings on the walls. Walk closer to the walls, and you will see them. Long panels of stone carvings, figures etched in detail. Warriors, players, nobles. But look closer still, and you will notice something striking. One scene shows a player on his knees, his head severed, blood spurting from his neck. But from the blood sprout, not random streams. They bloom into serpents, curling upward, twisting in ornate patterns. From death comes creation. Beside him stands another figure, holding the severed head in his hands, triumphant. The message is clear. This is not brutality, but sacrifice. The life force released becomes new life. This imagery is repeated across the walls. Again and again, decapitation, rebirth, triumph over mortality. For the Maya, the ballgame was a ritual act, a living reminder of the hero twins, a reenactment of their cosmic victory. The rubber ball. Now picture the ball itself. It was not light. Maya rubber balls could weigh as much as 4 kilograms, nearly the weight of a bowling ball. Players struck it with hips, thighs, or forearms, never hands or feet. To send such a ball flying through the air, to keep it bouncing, demanded incredible skill, strength, and endurance. And then, to pass the ball through the stone ring set high on the wall, 6 meters above the ground, nearly impossible. But when it happened, it was no mere point scored. It was a cosmic act, the ball symbolizing the sun itself, pushed through the ring like the sun crossing the heavens. For the audience, watching this was not sport. It was ceremony. It was witnessing the universe renewed. Sacrifice and misunderstanding. Modern audiences often recoil at the idea of human sacrifice. They imagine cruelty, fear, and bloodshed. But to the Maya, sacrifice was not death, it was transformation. To be chosen at the end of the ballgame was not punishment. It was honor. The losing captain, or sometimes the winning one, depending on the city and the era, might offer himself. In doing so, he became Hun Hunapu, the father reborn, the seed cast into the underworld that would give life again. The blood spilled was a seed for the cosmos. The death endured was not the end, but the promise of renewal. The walls of Chichen, Itza, show us this truth, etched forever in stone. From death, life returns. The court as theater. Step back again. Picture thousands gathered in the stands, watching, waiting. The air heavy with incense, with the smell of copal resin, the sweet smoke curling upward. Priests chant, musicians beat drums, blow conch shells, sound rattles. The crowd murmurs, gasps as the ball soars, cheers as players leap and strike. And then, silence. The game reaches its climax. The ball passes through the ring, where the final play is made. A player kneels. A blade flashes. Blood spills onto the earth, soaking into the sacred ground. The people bow their heads. They do not mourn. They know that the cycle is renewed, that the sacrifice has ensured the sun will rise again, that maize will grow, that life will continue. The ball court is not just architecture. It is a stage where myth and life merge. Every game is a prayer, every echo a hymn. Standing there today. Now, let us return to the present. Imagine yourself standing in the ball court as it is today. The walls still rise high. The stone still holds its carvings. The air still carries echoes. But there are no players, no crowds, no priests. Only you, perhaps a guide's quiet voice, perhaps the hum of cicadas in the jungle. The court feels silent, yet alive. The space is too deliberate, too perfect to be empty. You sense the past pressing close, like shadows at the edge of vision. You clap your hands, hear the echo, and it is as though the twins themselves answer. You look to the carvings, see the severed player blooming with serpents, and realize you are staring not at death, but at eternal life. For a moment, the present slips away. You can almost see them, players leaping, the ball striking, the crowd shouting, the priest raising his hand. And then, just as quickly, silence returns. The echoes fade. The jungle breathes. The court sleeps once more.